Hi,
Hello,
I'm Julian.
I'm Tom.
We are Team Binge,
Yes, we are.
and we are built to be efficient. So there will be no chit chat, no laughter, no jokes. Tom and I will talk about this show in a very succinct manner. We are talking about dark matter.
Hey,
Rhymed, matter and matter rhymed, right? Yeah, so that's something.
Same word, but
This is
yeah.
episode 7. I'm a bad songwriter. That's what bad songwriters do. They rhyme the same words together. Look up T Swift's lyrics. Anyways, shots fired. This episode is In the Fires of Dead Stars, which is a lot to unpack, and I just won't because space isn't real. And the Earth is flat, which when I told the guide at Chichen Itzu that the Earth was flat, he did not accept that theory. But, Tom, I really enjoyed episode 7. I typically throw to you to have you give your impression. I feel like in a show that has a lot of mystery and a lot of, not necessarily twists, you kind of, you get what's going on. It's two worlds. I felt like the ending of this one was a really like, wait, what moment?
Yeah.
And I thought this was really well done. I've made mention that I enjoy Amanda and teacher Jason, like their relationship developing. I thought this episode like played on that even further. I had some questionable, is this a music video moments? But other than that, I really enjoyed this episode. Tom, your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I could agree more. Like the mystery we get at the end was certainly mind blowing, and we'll kind of talk through it. But like Amanda's character with kind of teacher Jason and them kind of finally coming to a head, and her kind of telling all about the things that they had kind of gone through, I thought was just brilliant and incredibly well done. And seeing her essentially like get to go to her world like without his kind of subconscious or conscious kind of taking over, like I thought that was really awesome. And it almost seemed like the way this episode was kind of shot and put together, it was more like a penultimate episode setting up a finale. But this is only episode 7. We've got two more to go. I still do think that we have like a handful of characters that I'm very interested to know what's going on. We mentioned in the last pod, like what's going on with Leighton. Are we going to kind of see Ryan again? I have some like theories and thoughts as we talk through this episode. But yeah, just fantastic episode, and I'm just loving the show.
I love a show that doesn't hold your hand, and there were definitely parts in this episode, and you could like the complaint would be, oh, it was so confusing, I didn't know what was going on. But there were legitimate moments in this episode where we like paused, which you can do on a streamer, and be like, wait, which Jason is this? Is this Jason or that Jason? And like we had those conversations, and I enjoy that. Like once again, I have a dumb brain. Everything's mostly a mystery to it. And so I don't mind like pausing the show and trying to figure out who's who. I don't feel like that's bad storytelling if it all makes sense in the end. So I enjoyed being confused during this episode, and certainly it got a little bit like chaos and hectic towards the end, where it was like, wait, okay, that's this guy. Wait, which son is this? Like, who is this character?
Right.
Why does he have an earring? You know, all those questions we ask ourselves. Should I get an earring? Would I look better with an earring? Should we both get earrings? Are we daring each other to both get earrings? Are we getting tattoos and earrings, Tom? Are we doing this right now? Is that what we've decided to do? I'm in. Yeah. Oh, here we go. All right. You get the left ear. I get the right ear. That way, if we ever want to like change jewelry, we can borrow from each other. You know?
No, we get like a T on our, like the top of our hand, and then you get a B. So when we give ourselves knuckles, we form the Team Binge logo.
See, I don't like that because yours is your initial. B, like I've got to explain that. I'm like, oh, well, I do a podcast that's Team Binge. I'm the B of Team Binge. And they're like, I don't think you know what that means. And I'm like, well, sir, like this is a Wendy's. So...
but I do want to say, so like your point about them not holding your hand, I appreciate that because like the second episode, I think when we introduced the idea of like multiverse travel or whatever, or the two Jasons, you get that like music cue and snap. So you know very specifically when you're going from one to the other. And then as we kind of go on, they still do it every once in a while, but they kind of start playing with it a little bit, which I love. It just continues to like play with a wild mystery.
Which is very funny because they do that Zippo snap to like delineate timelines or dimensions. The conversation in my house was, wait, which one is this? I think we switched. And my wife went, no, they didn't do the snap. And then literally, because we didn't pause it at this moment, it did the snap. And I was like, okay, wait, where are we? And so, I don't know. I had a lot of fun with this episode. So we start with Ryan is missing, and everyone's a little bit worried about Ryan because they haven't seen him in, I guess, a couple of days. Tech Jason is making dinner. I don't remember what he's making. I feel like this show makes me hungry several times. They're like, hey, we're going to cook a good meal. They're not just like taking ground elk meat out of the freezer and pounding it into patties like the rest of us. But the surprise, and I'd kind of forgotten about this character, is that Detective Mason is back. And
Perry.
I assumed that Perry was the same Perry from the other episodes, but I'm looking at your outline notes, and you have something to say about that.
Well, yeah, because so it's still Detective Perry, or Detective Perry. It's Detective Mason, but it's the other universe's Detective Mason, right? Because when we met Detective, it was in Tech Jason's world when Teacher Jason was kind of like there and trying to like talking to CEO Layton and trying to figure out the missing people that was going on there. So now this is still Detective Mason doing her detective stuff in Chicago, but now coming after Tech Jason. So I think it's cool to, again, bring her character
Jason's
back.
World. Yep.
Yes, for sure.
I gotcha.
And I do need to ask, right? They were making dinner. Detective comes in. They invite the detective in. They sit at the table. Nobody's eating dinner. Like, what's going on there? Like, is that dinner just is in the fridge now? Are they not eating dinner? I felt like we were kind of. I felt bad for the family.
Well, have you ever done something where you like have a food item that's more expensive and then someone shows up and you're like, I don't want to share with this person. So you've got to like hide it or pretend like you don't want to allow them to have the nacho dip that you bought in the giant can. So I think that's what happened. I think the detective was like, oh, it smells good. Are you guys having dinner? Like hinting that she wanted to join. Night? Yeah, oh, is it? Yeah, exactly. And they're like, oh, no, we're vegan, and we already ate. Salads. We already ate today, and so that meat over there we're donating not to the police, but to someone else, an anti-police organization, and then
firefighters.
Yeah, firefighters, exactly. The anti-police, the firefighters. Good one, Tom. Perfect. They have a discussion about Ryan Holder missing. I don't know why I'm worried on behalf of Tech Jason. I know he's a terrible person, but I'm like, oh, how's he going to get out of this one? Because she's like, CCTV has you two. Well, actually, she doesn't even reveal this. He's like, oh, I was with him at the bar. And she's like, you were yeah, you did admit he was at the bar with you. Okay, we have CCTV of you two together.
Yeah, she's playing him a little bit, right? Like letting him say this. Like if he doesn't say this and he kind of incriminates himself or whatever, I don't know. But she's kind of playing at it.
Classic entrapment.
Like the way this conversation goes. Yep, not gonna hold up in court. The way Jason like positions this and says like, oh, he was on a bender, and says he's been sober since like college.
He's saying that high school.
Since high school.
He's been sober since high school, which is a really self-aware high schooler to be like, listen, I have a problem. It's an addiction. And I'm gonna be straight from here. Like, good for those people for not discovering they're an alcoholic in their 30s.
Makes the mention like, oh, he hasn't touched a drink since then, and then Daniela clocks this like right away. Like the camera kind of like changes focus and goes to her like knowing like no, you're drinking buddies. Like you guys go out every other week or whatever and go to the bar, everything else. So it just, again, none of this kind of makes sense to Daniela. And it kind of made me keep...
Let me hop in there. I think okay, so this is Teacher Jason's world. Mm-hmm. When Ryan goes to the bar with Teacher Jason, are they drinking or does he order a Diet Coke? I thought his sobriety...
Maybe he did, right? Because he got him like that super high-end liquor or whatever.
But he doesn't share it
but he just got it for...
Now I'm confused.
I don't remember. Like,
but yeah, Daniela like definitely clocked something. You're right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So something is just, again, continues to be kind of up for Daniela. And I just had this thought at this part in the show of like, even if Family Jason comes back and reunites and gets rid of Tech Jason in some heroic fashion, like...
With a gun.
Think about like Daniela's with a gun. Like... How do you reconcile the relationship with Daniela? Like, do you have to tell her everything? Is she going to believe all this stuff? Like, I feel like in this episode, or Tech Jason kind of does a good way of like backtracking it and doing the whole drug thing or whatever. But I just kept thinking about how does Jason get into this world and reconcile the relationship based off of what Tech Jason has seemingly destroyed their marriage.
Well, I don't know that he's destroyed it. I mean, they're certainly going to have some family meetings where they're all going to get together and yell. I don't know. This would be a question for, I don't know, twins that, I guess, spouse swap. That would be the closest thing that would be, of which okay. I'm not in that community. So I'm assuming there's a Reddit community where we could ask this and they would solve it. But no, I don't think there's a quick fix. If we're treating, and this show does a good job about making all these people human and like making the problems like human and the arguments human and like something. These people are like normal people. So I hope the show doesn't just like brushstroke, hey, teacher Jason's back, everything's hunky-dory. Like, right. Man, I'm really good you're not that other D-bag that showed up and I slept with him and, you know, we pretended he was a teacher until he quit his job and then he forced someone into the box and got millions of dollars. I mean, I don't know. I hope they don't brushstroke it, but seeing as how we only have 2 more episodes, I don't know that we're going to have like a bunch of family therapy sessions in episode 9, but
maybe with Amanda. Maybe they'll go with get Amanda to do some therapy and they'll solve it all.
Right. Yes, that would be a real. There's 2 Jasons in the room, Daniela and Amanda as the therapist, and they're all just working it out. And then Charlie bursts in and he's like, "Sorry, I'm late. The RAV4 ran out of battery, even though it's a hybrid." And they all look at him and they're like, "Why do you have an earring?" And he's like, "I don't know. It just felt right." Also, I have 2 tattoos that are a T and a B on my fists that when I link them together, they form an ice menorah. I don't know. Anyways, I liked the idea of putting pressure. Like, you get the sense that Tech Jason's world is like getting more and more pressure. Like, we've added the detective. Obviously, family life's not going well for him. Like, I appreciate that he's essentially our bad guy and that the world is kind of naturally, like, this plan is not going according to, rhyme it together, plan.
Dark matter. Oh.
No. Come on, T-Swift. Work with me here. All right.
But yeah, like, to your point, like, everything is just kind of coming in. It comes to a whole. But he clearly is planned for this, right? Like, he knows he's going to get confronted by Daniela, and I think his responses are, like, very well thought out, right? Where he's talking about, I've been doing the drugs. These are side effects. Like, all that stuff was brilliant.
Great point. Like, he handles this like an addict handles an intervention. He is so good in this moment because I was like, "Oh, she's got you." And then he's like, "Well, I developed this drug. Like, Ryan was under an NDA." And he handles this family meeting with a plum. Just incredible. I wish I could think on my feet like this guy does, because
he's able to essentially, like, say anything goofy that's been going on, me trying to murder our kid with peanuts, me flossing, all these things, it's because of the side effect of these drugs. Like, these are experimental drugs. I mean, I'd imagine a significant other, a partner, you'd buy that of the erratic behavior. And then he says, "I'll stop." So any sort of erratic behavior prior, boom, boom, you're good to go.
Yeah, she's like, "You have to stop." He's like, "I'll stop." She's like, "There better be tartar in between those teeth in a couple of days, because if you continue to floss, we are through." And he's like, "Oh, are you worried about the side effects in the drug?" She's like, "Tartar. Get it. We need it. It's important." And
gingivitis.
Oh, wow. Oh, there's a poll. Oh, what a terrifying commercial. Yeah, I enjoyed how they played this. And once again, I think Joel Edgerton, Jennifer Connelly, they're doing incredible work here. They're doing the Lord's work in this show about dark matter. All right. We go to Teacher Jason. And is this where she's like, "Hey, we need to, like, spend the ampules and just, like, take a break"? Like, she wants to go on vacation, essentially. I think this is that conversation. Because then they, like, go to this happy world where everything's nice and pathetic. They're like getting. I don't understand. They're served ice cream in a form. They're served a dessert in a form where you can eat the cup, which is just a ridiculous notion. I've had hundreds of ice cream cones in my life, and you eat the ice cream and you throw the cone away. The idea that you eat the container for your dessert is just insane. So this is where the show stretched to the point where I just couldn't take it. They're like, oh, I think this is edible. This is an edible cup. Ridiculous. You eat the ice cream, you throw the cone away. That's how this world works.
Mm-hmm. As we've established, you are a macroplastic kind of guy, so you would prefer it to be.
If that cone was plastic, I'd snort it up my nose. I love a macroplastic.
So this world is not for you. This is not your Chicago.
No one's getting mugged. You know, there's not a loud train that runs off diesel, dripping diesel fuel everywhere. Like, I mean, we're putting a bunch of oil and gas people out of work. I'm just against. I'm against all of it. Everyone seems to be nice. Like, the whole point of Chicago is you go and you yell at someone about their pizza. You know, I didn't care for this world at all.
What about like the buildings and the architecture? You didn't think that was beautiful?
No, it looked like a unicorn's horn. They were like, hey, we're going to call this the Obama building. It's going to be shaped like a unicorn's horn, which obviously you know my stance on that. Unicorns not born in the USA. Coincidentally, neither was Barack Obama. So that's something I've always said. You guys can read my tweets. Sorry, Tom. This is the second pod in one night, and you're getting all of it. I apologize.
Oh,
I apologize to all the unicorns out there that weren't born in the U.S. but somehow became president, even though they didn't show their birth certificates.
Listen, when me and my wife were watching the show, we heard the Obama building reference. We're like, oh, Julian's gonna love that one.
Listen, looking back, it's always like, you know what, we didn't have it that bad. But, you know, whatever. I don't want to date this podcast in terms of where we are at our presidential choices, but...
He is from Chicago. I mean, it makes sense. They didn't just throw Obama's name in there for fun.
I know he wasn't born there, Tom. That's all. He might be from there.
I do like how we get,
terrible.
like... Then, like, the picture of, like, the happy couple that kind of comes in, like, with... I don't know if it's like a Polaroid camera. I know this exists in our world where you can, like... you know, take a picture or whatever, but is this like implying that there are no phones here? So like this is essentially phones destroy empathy?
No one, I think so. I mean, the world is, despite what we're sold, there are people coming hard against smartphones and what they're doing to our lives, which, I mean, I don't think there's a person that can not agree with like what our world has become because of smartphones. Obviously, you can't blame it all on the tech, but I did feel like there was a total lack of phones in this world. And I didn't know if the Polaroid camera was just like kind of a throwback. It's fun. I know that one of my kids got one, promptly left it at great-grandma's house. We've never seen it again. So the most expensive 7 photos we've ever gotten out of a camera. But I don't know. I like the idea of no cell phones. I don't like the idea of having to drop things off at Walmart or Walgreens and wait for 3 days to get them developed, only to find out they blurred my private parts. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. This did make me think, though, too, about like this world. Like even when they first come to it, this has got to be the same world where Ryan was trapped, right? Like the way they kind of showed the architecture and stuff in the background, they kind of got there at night. There's like aurora borealis and stuff kind of going on. I think they are in the same universe as Trapped Ryan.
I don't like that simply because it would mean that Tech Jason and this Amanda thought so similarly about a world, and Amanda is like nice and empathetic and pure, and Tech Jason is evil. So I don't like that idea just from the standpoint of it would have meant they thought about the same things in order to come to the same world.
It does seem a little bit,
right?
Like a little tied with a bow. No, I'm kind of with you.
I like the idea for Ryan because I feel terrible for him that he got marooned in a world that's not his. And so it would be nice if it's the unicorn Barack Obama world, but where you can eat whatever ice cream comes in, which is insane. But I like that for Ryan.
Yeah. Well, and I can't remember what the preface of was when they went into the box, Ryan and Tech Jason, and Tech Jason abandons him there. Like, who was thinking of it? Did he tell like Ryan to think of like the perfect utopia? Was it him purposely thinking of like something?
I think it was all him, because I don't think Ryan has any idea of what they're doing. Like, he's in the hallway, and then Tech Jason's opening a door. And so I think it comes down to Tech Jason developing.
So I'm kind of with
world.
you that I feel like it is too easy because we know there's just multitude of universes, but I feel like they were so similar, and I saw some screenshots online between the two universes as they got dropped off, like where they were dropped off, the skyline. It looks so similar. It seems too close to not be coincidence.
I would love it. I would love it if Ryan and Amanda found each other, and they're both like, "Hey, I'm not from this world," and they're like, "Really? Me neither." And then let's meet at the top of the Obama building, and then they meet there, and I think that's a Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan movie, but I could be wrong. Do they meet at the top of a building at some point?
You got me. I know that's Oblivion, the Tom Cruise movie. I think they meet at the Chrysler Building or something.
Oh,
right?
did I say Tom Cruise? I meant Tom Hanks.
You said Tom Hanks.
Oh, okay.
We're thinking of different movies. I'm thinking of Oblivion. You're thinking of, I don't know, You Got Mail? Sleepless in Seattle?
Sleepless in Seattle. They meet at the top of a tower. They meet at the top of the famous Seattle George W. Bush Tower in that world. So, guy wasn't even president yet. Anyways, I know I'm not... Tom, I can tell you this. I know I'm not thinking about Oblivion because I'm almost never thinking about Oblivion, the Tom Cruise movie, which is surprising because it's the best Tom Cruise movie.
It's a good movie.
You guys can reach out to us at teambingepodcast@gmail.com to let us know what you think about the movie Oblivion, featuring Tom Cruise, almost Tom Hanks. All right, let's move on. We have a lovely fancy dinner. I don't know what it is about these two, but I just wanted to spend more time with them. And I did not I was like, oh, this is going to work out for these crazy kids. And then she's like, guess what? I'm staying. And I was like, oh no, they're breaking up the band. I really wanted to spend more time with them.
And guess what she did? She laid out clothes for him. And guess what he did? He put on those clothes.
Well... She put him on the chair in the restaurant. I'm assuming he had to go into the restaurant bathroom and change, which changing in a bathroom stall in a public restroom is not something that's all that enjoyable. But in this world, I'm sure there's like a couch and a full-length mirror and probably a butler that does it for you.
But she essentially mentions, too, like that she found a home. And this is, again, like exactly what she had written in her note, is that she's trying to find something for herself.
She makes a comment about, I have disappeared in this world, like no one's seen me for a while. She went and murdered herself, right? Amanda went and killed herself. I'm sorry, the version of her in this world. And was like, yep, she hasn't been around for a while, so this is a perfect world for me. And she's like,
yeah, got a cool little light-up passport.
We can make you disappear in this world as well. And he's like, wait, what does that mean? And Amanda just goes on a killing spree.
In this world with no empathy?
Yes.
Or too much empathy?
Can you imagine the surprise of being murdered in a world full of empathy? They're like, what are you doing? Ah! And then they die,
Wait,
they would have been so
is this
surprised.
Minority Report world? Is this that Tom Cruise movie?
Oh, yes. Minority
Precogs?
Report, also known as Oblivion, but 20 years earlier. And not starring Colin Farrell, the main star. Okay.
But I like how she sets this all up. She's saying, like, hey, I've done the research. I've been gone for 2 hours or whatever. This is a perfect world for me. It's set up for me to just kind of come in and take over her life. And she essentially says she wants to move back to Seattle, tries to get him to stay, and essentially, he has to kind of take a beat and think about, like, the time they've had together, because clearly there's a connection, but, can't do it. Can't forget about Danielle and Charlie.
The amount of time I put myself in his shoes, and I was like, oh, this seems like a pretty good world, and she seems pretty cool. And then I was like, oh, yeah, he's got a kid and a wife in another world. Really, it's the Charlie of it all that like did it for me. Where I was like, he can't stay. You can't abandon your kid. You gotta.
Could abandon your wife all day long. But
Yeah.
kid.
Well, you can abandon them in death. That's what the good book says. But it was really Charlie I felt for more because I feel like Charlie needs this guy to show up at the skate park, pick him up, drop him off, and give him peanut ice cream. You know, all those things. That famous peanut ice cream. They exchange. Is this Amanda and Teacher Jason where they're like no regrets? Is that this discussion?
Yeah, I think they're kind of talking. They're essentially kind of saying their goodbyes and everything.
Oh, because he goes to give her. He's like, "Oh, take some ampules," and she's like, "No, like this is it. I'm making my no regrets." And Tom, I think I've said this on the podcast before. That mantra of no regrets, I absolutely hate. I think that is the silliest mantra in the world. I think we should. It's easy. You learn from your mistakes. If you're constantly like, oh, no worries, I don't regret doing that, it is what it is, I think that is a silly way to live. I think we should all dwell on our mistakes and let them slowly eat away at us on the inside until there's a hole in our soul, just like the purple PJs sing about. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I love your optimistic outlook on life. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
But he does, like, as they're giving their like kind of the final hug and kiss or whatever, he drops the 2 ampules in her bag, right? So is the idea, my brain again goes back to like if Ryan's in this world, is she going to give these ampules to Ryan? Are they going to have like a chance meet? Are they both going to use them? Is he going to give it to Ryan? Could Ryan potentially get back to that world? I feel like that'd be super cool.
Finale. Ryan and Amanda Star Trek show up in the middle of a scene and just shoot everyone in the face. I'm all for it. I think that's a great idea.
Why is everybody a murderer in your world?
Well, because no regrets, man. No regrets. We shoot people, no regrets. That's how we live our lives over here.
I don't think that's how it works.
Hey, no regrets. I don't regret making that statement or having that opinion. No regrets. It's all cool, bro. I want to point out that you said, when they're doing their hug and kiss, this kiss is pretty sensual for 2 people that have not committed in matrimony. So I thought that this was a little bit too much. A little bit too much upper lip, a little bit too much lower lip as they said goodbye.
They're just dangerous lovers in space-time. What can you do?
Right. Yes. It's a great game, by the way. Oh, this is where it turned into a music video. I was like, what are we doing here? It was very backlit with a CGI sun. She's in the elevator. They turned the music up really loud. I'd never heard this song before, but whoever did the music for the show was like, hey, have you ever seen a Taylor Swift 2019 music video? I'd like to do one of those in the middle of this television episode. And everyone was like, cool, J-Bones, do your music video. And that's what they did.
I mean, the acting from Amanda here is just so fantastic, where she's going down that elevator and is just completely distraught and she's just kind of bawling on the elevator ride down, but then
and Evanescence
has the epiphany.
Is playing.
Yeah, that this is my world. I found something new. I can find something that I can kind of grab onto. Is it Alice Braga? Just crushing it. Absolutely crushing it.
Yeah, no, the actress is doing great. I thought you were trying to name who sang the song, and I was going to not help you because I had no idea. They also do the mirror trick. This is a music video staple where it looks like she's walking, she's chasing him down, and then he goes one way, and it's not a mirror. She's on the other side, and I was like, wait, how does that work? That doesn't work
runs
at
into
all.
A window.
Yeah, it would have been great had they run into each other and been like, do you hear that music? Yeah, I hear that music. Very dramatic, right? We already said goodbye. Do you want to kiss weirdly like we did again? That would be fun. And then they get married and they stay there. But I was sad to see these 2 separate. I did actually. And I felt it was mean of the show to be like, oh, she is walking towards him. She's going to chase him down. And I was like, oh, just like Oblivion at the top of the Sears Tower where Tom Cruise and Meg Ryan meet. I was like, oh, this is great. What a rom-com. But that's not what happened.
Fantastic.
Great. All right. Oh, I didn't like this scene at all. This is where Teacher Jason Teacher
He's
Jason
running low on ampules. Yeah,
he's running low on
He's
ampules.
trying to find her.
And he calls Danielle in another world, and it's just so sad. He loves her so much, and I was like, this guy is broken, and he can like see her through the window. He's just telling her how much he loves her and how much he took for granted, and
Like to be that close to like your loved one that you've been, going on this wild adventure trying to get back to, and she's talking to you like it's your Daniela. It's heartbreaking, and that's what again I love about the show. Like the acting is great, the writing is great. There's just so much humanity to it, which makes like the sci-fi and kind of the craziness that goes on so much better.
I agree. And then the show wants to punch us in the nose by having us look at Teacher Jason in a shop window looking at the white mask. And you're like, no, don't become a murderer, or don't steal this, because this is a weird, like, what's the game where you run around in a circle and you sit in someone else's spot and you take, musical chairs. This is a weird game of musical chairs, but you're murdering the person or sending them through the box. And
at first, I was like almost confused. I thought like they were kind of playing at something where like it's some sort of like
time loop,
circular loop where this is actually him. He gets the mask, he goes back in, because it just seemed too odd for him to see this exact same mask in the same shop. But it would make sense, like if. I don't know, it makes some sense. If you're looking for a mask, you go to your local mask shop.
Sure.
Which is by the maybe that bar they always go to, the tap house.
Well, next to the Village Tap is the Phantom of the Opera Museum. Because Phantom of the Opera did a 2-week stint in Chicago, and so they kept the mask. Now, I know you're thinking, well, the Phantom of the Opera was a half mask. Well, in this one, the take was full mask. So, better Phantom. Because it was a full mask.
Yeah,
you're welcome. He goes up and watches them sleep. And at first I thought it was Ryan and Danielle in bed, but then they very clearly show it's Joel Edgerton in bed with Daniela. And I love where TV's at these days. The fact that they can, have him standing in the room, and also, that special effect was flawless. I don't know how they did it. I'm assuming it was millions of dollars of CGI, but I'd never seen that before in a show. Yeah,
I think they actually cloned him. Yeah.
Like that sheep.
Dolly.
Dolly. Thank you. I was trying to remember the name. I knew it wasn't Bali, but you got us there, so that's something. I thought all of this, because you're watching him break bad almost, and you're like rooting against, but he's at the end of his rope. And I found all of this very heartbreaking.
And who do we meet, right? So he's in the house, and he's like, kind of burglar in his own house. And as he's getting ready to leave, somebody comes down the stairs, makes some noise. Who do we meet?
We meet Earringed Max. Earringed Max shows up, and I got very confused here because initially I thought it was Charlie, and then based on comments he made, and when he hugs him, he calls him Max, and he does not retreat from that name. So we find out it's Max, and in the other world, Max died of a
heart condition.
Heart condition.
We kind of confirm
so
here.
In this world, we find out that he got a heart transplant, and that there's someone who perished in order for him to get their heart, and he feels a level of guilt. And I don't feel like this Max is as close to his father as Charlie is in the other world.
Yeah, like as he's walking into this house, I think you see the Yellowstone picture of kind of them in the background, and you actually see two children. So like immediately I'm kind of clocking like, oh, this is a world where Max and Charlie are both alive. But the way this is kind of shot, he says like he got like Holly's heart. So I'm wondering if like maybe he had a twin sister instead of a twin brother. Like maybe that's kind of like the parallel universe thing here. He almost kind of like makes mention that he feels like he's like the screw up, and maybe Holly was, if he was a sister or a close friend, like she was the kind person, the nice person. He feels almost like he's not deserving of this heart and is not living the life to the fullest extent, whatever it might be. But it is very interesting. And that picture you see in the background where you see, the two children, it's very, very blurry, so you can't tell. Like, again, I don't know if it's pertinent or if it really matters, but I'm wondering if this was a twin sister or if it really was Charlie and Max.
I had the same thought. Is there is some sort of importance with whoever the heart transplant came from, and what you're saying makes a lot of sense. Now,
I saw something on the internet too that like potentially like maybe this was like a car accident or something like that, and like Holly donated the heart or something, and maybe it's in that like intersection we've seen a handful of times where like teacher Jason is telling him, hey, slow down at the yellow light, other one's telling him to go fast. Like maybe that is like the cause of some of this. Again, I think that's maybe a little bit of conjecture, and I don't think it really makes a whole lot of sense, but it's an interesting concept.
Right. Do you think we're going to spend more time in this world, or we're done with this world by the end of this episode?
No, we're
right?
in and out. I think this is just a sense for getting the twin or Max and allowing Jason to actually like be able to hug his son that he never had the chance to.
Sure.
At this age, at least.
We go back to Tech Jason's where he's at, and he is in a therapy session, and he decides to go very hard at therapist Amanda. And he's like, let me tell you about you. And this goes poorly, and I did not like it.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is where he's just becoming more and more evil Jason. Like, this character, whatever he... Like, that pivot point and all the research, everything he did, it made him a much eviler version of himself. Not just a, like, businessy guy, but a just vindictive, evil person. But I appreciate that Amanda's just like, yeah, you can leave. Kindly leave.
Kindly leave. And don't take any of the candy on my desk on your way out.
Yeah. Which is actually kind of interesting. I'll just say that real quick, right? Because we do know from the other, like the Amanda's conversations with our teacher Jason, that she has like this like love of candy, and I think even teacher Jason like brings her that candy, like dares or whatever it is, so we know she kind of has a sweet tooth. So it's interesting that he kind of brings it back in this conversation too.
Sure. Is this where we then have the conversation? I think with the detective and Tech Jason on the stairs, and they're talking about the last ping of the cell phone, and you'd think they'd discover a concrete box there, right? That might be suspicious.
Right. They said this the ping is in this industrial area. Like maybe they have already searched it. Maybe they just kind of came up empty. It is seemingly like in like the basement of this industrial place, so maybe it is a little bit more challenging to find. We don't know where that ping essentially was.
Yeah, the ping is the cell phone tower, so it wouldn't be the exact location. So,
but they certainly know more than what they're telling Jason here, and she's just kind of like essentially playing him. She's a very smart detective.
I like the way this detective is. I mean, she's a true detective, as we've always said.
Nice.
You know, I found this very surprising. Because we cut to this scene where Tech Jason is talking to a drunk Ryan, and drunk Ryan's like, I didn't do this, I got a DUI in college, blah, blah, blah. And I was trying to figure out what world we were in. And then when he brings them through, I was like, oh, he had to go steal a different Ryan because he doesn't want to get charged with murder because they're closing in on him. I thought I did not see this coming. I thought it was pretty funny and it was like good writing.
But yeah, essentially, like Jason just takes a hammer to the box. So again, terrible measure of closing this box when you can just hammer it and then get back in. Steals this Ryan. I was really hoping this would be like a McBoyle version of Jimmy Simpson. I thought that'd have been great. Just kind of finds him in a bar. He's got like the unibrow, wearing the robe. That'd have been pretty great.
He's there with his brother and sister, and it's McPoyle, by the way. With a P.
McPoyle. So. It's all the same. But he brings him back. He cuts his hair. He puts him in his bed or whatever, and is just gonna assume that this Ryan's going to wake up and love his new world, I guess. I don't know how he's gonna react, but I think essentially it doesn't really matter to this Jason, right? He's thinking singularly, like, I just need to get a Ryan back into this world so their suspicions off of me.
Yeah, and in this world, he can have some sort of manic episode where he's lost it. And so he thinks he's another guy that... I just appreciated how long a haircut would take. And, like, as a person who, I guess, maybe he drugged him. I thought he just drank a lot. But wouldn't you be like, hey, why are you cutting my hair, sir? And why did you take me into this metal dark matter box, which I dreamed about in college? I don't know. And he's like, this tastes like blueberry jam. Is this lavender fairy? I know this strain of sativa. I don't know. we have the moment that we've all been waiting for, which is Teacher Jason looking at that last ampule, and he just starts remembering, like, Daniela at the beginning and what it meant to him, and, like, how maybe imperfect their life was, but how it was perfect for him. Mm-hmm. And this is all leading to us going through the concrete. I thought this was very well done. I enjoyed this.
Yeah. Incredibly well written, incredibly well delivered by Joel Edgerton. Like, again, man, at literally the end of his rope here with this last ampule, and that, like, line about, you know, he always thought he was seeking perfection, but didn't realize, like, is the imperfection, which is essentially his perfection and his family. Just beautiful. And then you knew that moment, right? When he opens up that door, you hear the suction kind of pop off, and then he's kind of walking through that concrete. You're like, boom, this is a cool little deal for the audience too. So we immediately know he's home.
Sure. Yeah, moments like this, like I obviously I joke about matrimony quite a bit, but like, I don't know if you've ever had this experience, but it's 3 a.m. One of your kids is thrown up all over the bathroom, and you and your spouse are like on hands and knees wiping it up, and you kind of look over, and you're just like, this is not perfect, but it's perfect for me, and like this is a great like life to share with someone. Mm-hmm. So when they go into that, I think about not to get sappy on you, Tom, but I think about those moments.
I love sappy Julian. It's my favorite.
And then I mean, I think that was also the night where the kid threw up literally on my face. So
that's where your wife is just wiping vomit over your face.
Lucky enough to be wearing my night glasses, so it didn't go
nightgown.
I was also in a nightgown, obviously, Tom. I'm not a farmer. I'm going to wear a silk nightgown to bed, as we all do. The moment where you see him open the door and he kind of looks confused, and then the camera pulls out and you see the concrete, I was like, even though that's like the only conclusion the show, like, it's got to be there, right? Last ampule, that's what you. I found myself surprised by this, so I did. Yeah. I enjoyed how they did this. Did you track what was on the marquee as he went through the town on his way to his house?
Because I think I tracked it in like the other episode where it showed a movie that like didn't exist, so I was kind of keeping an eye out for it. But it's got A Wonderful Life, which I think is kind of like the parallels of him like running through the snow, running and trying to like find his family, which is essentially exactly what.
Have you not seen It's a Wonderful Life, Tom?
No, never.
So It's a Wonderful Life you should watch. It's a Wonderful Life is like, hey, if I didn't exist, what would the world be like? It's like him in great despair, and he's thinking he's going to kill himself, and he thinks, I wish I didn't exist. And so you see this world where he didn't exist, and it's essentially like, hey, here are all the lives you affected positively. So you should be in this world. So I think that is a parallel to this show in that way.
Is the movie in color?
It's a black and white, my friend.
Yeah, okay, so I don't need to watch it. The other two...
So cold! So you're as cold as ice, my friend.
I know.
I'm over here baring my soul, and you're...
I know it's classic cinema, and I have not seen it. I apologize. There's a gap in my filmography. But the other two movies that are listed on there are Summer Frost and Upgrade. I know Upgrade is a movie that I've seen, which is like the guy gets like a brain implant and he can just kick people's butts or something, but I don't think it's what it's referring to. I looked at
It's a Wonderful Life of our generation, Tom. Upgrade is.
But Summer Frost and Upgrade are both books written by the author of Dark Matter, Blake Crouch.
Oh, I didn't know
he's
that.
Just putting in his novels essentially.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
I thought Upgrade had potential simply because it's like you take a drug and you get to do these things. Summer Frost I did not look up, but I thought that was I thought those were interesting movies to play on the marquee. I clocked them for you.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
Okay, he gets to his house, Teacher Jason, and he's watching Tech Jason deal poorly with the family because Tech Jason's like, hey, by the way, they found Ryan. He was on a bender. All good. I called his girlfriend. I'm going to call that detective. Doesn't feel like Charlie or Danielle are really buying this, but I do appreciate how Tech Jason is trying to cover all of his tracks. And you're just like, go into the house, really surprise these guys. Be like, hey, I'm a twin. that you never knew about.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Prestige.
Yeah, prestige. Boom. Twins run in families, so if Max and Charlie were twins, then it's possible that Jason had a twin. I don't know.
Sure.
Lots of stuff. The second option is go to the gun store, which is where we go. And boy,
Now, I'm assuming this was your favorite world, right? This is your ideal world as opposed to the Chicago empathetic.
No. My issue here is they've required like documentation in order to buy a gun. That seems crazy to me. This is the Wild West, you know? You should be. No, I think good gun control is something we should all strive towards. But this is where the madness kind of took over.
Yes.
And shame on him for thinking he can go into a Chicago gun store and just get a gun. But he gets a knife and mace, the next best things. If you tape them together, they're almost like a gun. But the so this is Teacher Jason initially, right? Is the first person
what's
Teacher
your thoughts?
Jason?
So, I don't know what you think. This
When
whole
we
sequence
walked
happens.
into this, based on how it was cut, based on we see Teacher Jason outside the house, seeing Tech Jason in his house, my assumption was this was Teacher Jason.
Okay. I think you're right. I think the first iteration that we see here is Teacher Jason, and I think the tells are the ring. He's got the rubber ring on his finger. You can kind of clock it throughout the scene, and he's got that like scar or kind of cut on his nose from when he got like punched by Leighton, I think, earlier on.
Okay.
So we know, I think, that the first iteration of this guy in the shop buying the knife and the mace is Teacher Jason. You know, the biggest question mark obviously is we got this other Jason coming in. They make specific mention that he has a brace on his finger. He still has the cut on his nose, so we know it's not like Tech Jason also going in here. I think we're supposed to believe that this is a alternate version of Jason that is also trying to come back to this world and find his Daniela, which is just kind of wild to start now, just like theorizing and everything. Because if he has that cut in his nose, that means it is a same Jason that went through at least a portion of what, you know, Teacher Jason that we've been following this whole time has gone through. But I don't know, maybe he got his finger caught in the door, but it didn't fall off like Don's. Maybe he just kind of broke it a little bit. It was an absolutely wild reveal, and I'm all for it.
So he is, and third Jason, or whoever the last Jason is, finds out that there's another version of him that was just in the gun store, and so he goes out. Was your assumption, and you brought this up, so I'm assuming it was, is that this guy has seen Christopher Nolan's masterpiece, The Prestige, and he's trying to find his other version so that they become headlining magicians and they can do the transported man trick? Yes or no?
Yes, absolutely.
Also, he's like, have you seen Tenet? Because I have, and I'm still confused by it, and I'd like someone to talk to about it. So he wants to find his twin so they can talk about Tenet.
Who better than yourself, who is probably just as confused as you are?
Sure.
But so there's also another little Easter egg that I found from watching another YouTube video on the show that apparently if you listen to the audio description of this, where it kind of like reads out like what's going on in the scene, it says that Jason goes out into the snow, but it doesn't say Jason, it says Jason 6. So it is quite possible that there are more, that this isn't just a third Jason. Like there are multiple Jasons running all around trying to get here. So like maybe the idea is like every time they took an ampule and every time they went into the box, they essentially created alternate realities or versions of that Jason where he opened the door and did whatever he was doing with Amanda. But maybe there was a version of him that actually stayed with Amanda, or another version where they split up earlier on and he got back quicker. I don't know, but it just opens up the door literally for just wild chaos and stuff to happen.
You definitely weld that door shut then. If this is a possibility that a new Jason can come in at any point, you weld that door shut, 100%.
Well, and the other thing to clock too is like the poster for like the show is like 1,000 different Joel Edgertons in the background with like one Jennifer Connelly. So it's not necessarily wild to think that, I mean, we know there's multiverse of Jasons, but for them to actually have more of them show up in the show, I think is interesting. We've already seen from like Blair's story that she brought in, you know, those murder hornets into that one world. So the idea of bringing in like other world into your world isn't necessarily unheard of.
Isn't there a Michael Keaton movie where there's like a bunch of his twins operating?
Multiplicity. It's a
There you
fantastic
go.
movie.
So are we just watching Multiplicity? I think that's probably what it is. Tom, can you imagine having to podcast about 6 Jasons? I mean, how would we keep track of them? How would we name them? It's impossible.
It becomes like, Broken Finger Jason. You got to just do physical characteristics.
I mean, we certainly wouldn't do numbers. That's too vanilla. So we would, I don't know, we'd be like Jason.
Different languages.
Jason J, Jason J.A., Jason J.A.S., Jason. We'd do it that way. That's the only way that makes sense.
What's your thought about this? Like, does this become... So I talked to another friend of ours who's also watching this show, and he's like, if it's another version of Jason that's coming into this world, like, he's out. Like, he's not a fan of it because I think it just makes it like too science fiction-y or gets too like cute with it.
Time loopy.
Do you like the idea? I mean, I'm all for it. Like, I like the mystery of it. It definitely opens the door for them to potentially go off the rails. But what I've seen from the show so far, I mean, I'm excited to see what they essentially do with this.
Yeah, I mean, it just means we have some hard choices that we're going to come up against. Like, who gets to live in this world? Which Jason deserves this world? Do they draw straws? I mean, do they play some sort of weird version of Russian roulette? Like, I don't know, because if they're all fighting over the same Jennifer Connelly, which is completely understandable, it doesn't bother me. I'm not out on it. I like the idea. My only issue is, are we doing this so that we're going into a season 2? I really want this wrapped up in one season because I like things tied up in a bow. So I don't know. I like the mystery of it. I like that they threw... I don't know that we needed a wrench in the gears, but I do like that they did it. And this was a moment in a television show where I was like, wait, what? And I had to rewind.
Watch the scene again?
Yeah, and try and figure out what was going on, which it's not often shows do that. So the question is always, can they land the plane? But I've enjoyed the ride, certainly so far. So I'm interested to see where they land it.
Yeah, we got 2 episodes, right? Like, the penultimate episode in like a mystery like this is usually always like a really fantastic one because they're setting up how they're going to land the plane kind of in the final. So I'm very much looking forward to next week. And again, are we going to see Ryan? Are we going to see Leighton? I would really love to, but I just don't know how much time you can spend with their stories to try to wrap up everything else now that we have potentially multiple Jasons in play.
Sure. I can only assume that because this is an American show, it's just going to come down to a big gunfight, and whoever shoots better than all the other people wins the box and wins Jennifer Connelly.
Well, it's not shoots. It's whoever maces or knifes the other one. Maybe it's going to be like
mace stabs. Stabs. They're like,
oh,
my
Jackson
eyes! This is the worst pain I've ever felt. And then they get stabbed, and they're like, no, retract that. The stabbing is worse than the mace in the eyes. This is so much worse. But both of them compounded hurt too. That's amazing stabbing.
All these different Jasons are going to try different ways to combine the mace and the knife. One guy's going to spray mace on the knife and see if that helps. But I figured it's like the Michael Jackson video. Don't they like tape their hands together and they both have like a knife and they have a knife fight while their hands are taped? Like a dance knife fight?
That's how it should be. Quite a reference. I would only assume that the best one will put a PVC pipe on that compressed mace and then stick the dagger in it and turn it into a gun that shoots daggers. So that's what I do. Dagger gun, brought to you by Costco. All right, with that, I'm still enjoying it. I look forward to the mystery of 8 and then eventually 9. If you have questions or concerns or anything, you can reach us at teambingepodcast@gmail.com. There's something about rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts. If you're going to leave a mean review, please don't. Just email us. We'll read your meanness via email, but not via review. Tom, what did I miss?
Yeah, follow us on the socials at Team Binge or at Team Binge Podcast on Twitter and Instagram. Let us know what your theories, thoughts, and things are of the show. I think this is definitely a great time to be able to theory craft because there's a lot going on. So let us know what you think. And we got 2 more episodes. We'll wrap this up, and we're excited for the conclusion.
Right, and if you've read the book and you know how this ends, don't email us. Don't email us that. That's
Leave us
mean.
alone, man.
That's cruel and mean. Tom, at the end of every episode, we always talk about the other media that we're consuming. We do it without fail on every episode. I would like to recommend Tom's recommendation, which was Mr. and Mrs. Smith on Amazon Prime. Even though I haven't finished it, I've really enjoyed the ride. We were talking about it before this pod, but love the movie, the Brad Pitt, Angelina Jolie, Mr. and Mrs. Smith movie, and the show is certainly a different take, but it's pretty fun. So Tom and I's recommendation is that, because I know he's not going to come up with something on his own.
No, me and my wife just finished Bodkin. It was one on Netflix, has Will Forte and some Irish actors, because I think it kind of takes place in Bodkin, Ireland. It's an interesting concept. Essentially, it's like a murder mystery, but he's like a podcaster that does like...
Ooh, two things we like. Podcasters and murder.
The show could have been up our alley, but he was like a true crime podcaster, and he's trying to essentially like capture the magic of his first podcast that he did that was wildly popular. But it's really cool, like really good acting, kind of some fun, like goofy mystery stuff that kind of ties up pretty well in a single season. So I'd give it a go. Recommend it.
And it's on Netflix?
Bodkin on Netflix. Yep.
Bodkin on Netflix. All right. For Team Binge, I have been Julian.
And I have been Tom. Till next time, everybody.